Welcome to the Curiosity Exchange. In our earlier discussions, we explored the future of human capital. Today, we examine a foundational question. Are degrees still the dominant currency of credibility? Or are we witnessing the beginning of structural change? Prof. Roussel, let me start simply. Are degrees losing their monopoly? Degrees were designed for a slower, stable world. But the AI age is changing skills, roles, and industries much faster. This raises questions about whether traditional degrees still represent real capability or just endurance within structured systems. The future may shift from credential based hiring to proof based skills, where portfolios and real abilities matter more than degrees.
Yeah, so I think it's a fair question as of today, given the massive changes that we have observed over the last decades when it comes to degrees, and I would say the production of degrees. So the first thing to remember is that degrees were supposed to be a signal of competence, intelligence, diligence, and therefore the ability to perform some tasks at a certain level. They basically sort of summarize the human capital, the skills that an individual possess at a certain point. And degrees, therefore, were extremely important in terms of making the hiring process a bit easier, because you could hire someone in part, not totally, but in part based on the degrees that this person had obtained. And in a world where degrees were quite rare, where basically the vast majority of the population was high school educated, then it was, I think, a lot easier for employers and companies to identify the level of skills of someone by just looking at the degrees that this person had obtained. So degree as a signal of competence, diligence, skills, a certain level of human capital. And obviously this was working well for the degree holder as well, at least for students or people willing to go into the higher education system, because now I'm more focusing on higher education. Because when you look at historical studies which are measuring the premium that a degree holder, a higher education degree holder, is going to earn in comparison to the wages that a non-higher education degree holder will make, then that premium has been quite substantial and has been rising, say, from the late 1970s until the 2010s. So, of course, this premium has changed a bit, and it's a bit different from one nation to another. But if you want to take a big picture, this is basically where we are. And the interesting point is that this premium is still there and is still quite significant. So there is still I would say, an advantage, an economic advantage to having a degree. But this premium has been eroding. So it's still there. It is still very substantial when you compare money made by degree holder in comparison to wages earned by non-degree holders, that is high school um, graduates. But if you look at the evolution over the last 15 years, so from the 2010s to nowadays, 2010, I think, is a good starting point, because it's basically 2 years after the Great Recession, the 2008 financial crisis. And therefore, people, graduating in 2009 and 10 and 11 uh, had some challenges not finding a job, but maybe finding a job that was consistent with the expectation they had, given the credentials, the academic credentials that they have built in universities. And therefore, that premium has been declining ever since 2010. It's still there. The premium is still is still real and substantial, but it's not as big as it used to be. And therefore, in light of this fact, and in addition to also another fact, which is the massification of the production of degrees. So if you look at the percentage of an age cohort graduating from college and going into graduate degrees, masters and doctorates, there's been a significant expansion. And therefore, in this environment where you have more and more graduates, on the one hand, where the premium that you get from a degree is still substantially higher, is still there. That is, you make more as a graduate, a higher education graduate than a high school graduate. But this premium is going down. It's declining. And therefore, in this environment, there are challenges. I mean, the degree system is being challenged. There is a fear of an overproduction of degrees, basically having too many students and too many graduates, which means that at some point, some graduates would be frustrated because they will basically be employed in jobs, and they will have positions which are not really requiring the competence, the skill, the human capital that they have developed in the form of higher education. And in this context, I think the degree production system is being challenged, and therefore it opens up opportunities for new forms, new ways of looking at credentials and I would say the credentials metric. How do we measure credentials? How do we certify credentials? So definitely, I think we're going to go beyond degrees. I think degrees are going to be around for a while because that's been structuring our vision of competence. It's been structuring, for example, the way the job market is working in many nations, and therefore it's not like it's going degrees. The importance of degrees is not going to vanish overnight. Because there is this sort of what we have described as structural changes. But there's certainly going to be a challenge to the importance of degrees in starting a career, and the importance of degrees, especially in measuring the level of competence of somebody. It used to be one of the best signals. It certainly is a very potent signal as of today, but because of massification of degrees, it's less of a great signal, because when you're an employer, when you're a company, and you have to hire someone, you have a choice out of a pool of graduates that you didn't have before. In the 1960s or 70s, if you wanted to graduate, I mean, to hire graduates, you didn't have much of a choice, and therefore and also you could be confident at the time that those graduates were very competent, very diligent, and very much hardworking, because the university system and the degree system was designed to basically to train people in being like that. Nowadays, if you want to recruit someone at a graduate level, you have a lot of choice. And therefore, what happened is sort of a perverse mechanism, is that companies as of today, will hire people to hold positions which are not really requiring, let's say, a master's degree, for example. But nevertheless, because you have master's degrees graduates in abundance. I mean, maybe this expression is a bit excessive, but you have a significant production, a significant output, so to speak, of graduates, of masters, for example, graduates. Then you can afford, as a company, to recruit people who are going to hold jobs which are not requiring graduate degrees, credentials. And obviously that leads to some, I guess, discontent from graduates, from the graduate standpoint, because you're not, doing what you expected to do. And obviously, if you're not using the skills that you've built, then those skills will disappear. And so there is a crisis when it comes to the system which is producing degrees. This crisis, I think, is not acute to the point that it's going to tear the system apart and to break it down completely. But it's starting to be quite significant. And I think the next economic crisis or the next financial crisis, or a combination of both, um, could even could strengthen even that malaise. This feeling of a mismatch between the credential system, the degrees, and the job market, and therefore that would lead to the need for other things, other ways of measuring credentials, and an alternative to the degree system. So I think that the degree system is always going to be there, especially for elite institutions who can sort of because they have built such prestigious brands, they can always signal high quality. Because if you look at Ivy Leagues, for example, Ivy League institutions in the United States, that's basically what you have. The super prestigious universities which have stellar brands, and therefore you certainly would have like a different type of system going forward, where with a combination of existing institutions in higher education, especially the most prestigious one, and then you would have sort of maybe a pool of higher education institutions, the one that's will survive, and other type of institutions which will compete against higher education institutions such as universities and colleges.